what we got here is a really bad situation, and you see this on the range all the time. But I'm going to talk to you guys about it as far as realistic terms here. You have a firearm, and these three bad guys have one also. These three bad guys are at low ready, and they can return fire from low ready in probably, let's say, a half a second. You're not at low ready, but let's say that you're going to draw. No matter what anybody says, this is a very bad situation because you're out in the middle, okay? These guys already have their guns out, and it ain't going to take them long to fire upon you. Now, there's a saying that Robert Keller said from Special Ops about this situation here. He said, you're probably going to get shot. You're probably going to get killed. And that's just the reality that we have to face, that could happen. But on the other hand, he said a good point that I've been trying to get across for well over a decade is the point that you can only kill one person at a time or incapacitate one person at a time. So if these guys have a 5-second shot from where they're standing, these two guys right here, even if I beat this guy, if I shot him one time, even if it's in the heart, it doesn't matter where you shoot him, he doesn't go down and he's still shooting at me. It doesn't make sense that I engage this guy and this guy too, because you can only kill one person at a time. And that's why these competition shooters and people that are in fairy tale land seem to think that when I give them this situation here, a lot of them say, well, what I would do is I would go 2 shots on him, 2 shots on him, and 2 shots on him, and they just all fall right down, right? But in reality, these guys are going to be running around and moving. Most of these targets are not going to be just in one spot. And this is why I tell people, I don't care if you have a 17-round magazine, you're still probably going to get killed. You're going to get shot or killed probably in this bad situation here. And the thing a lot of people will say about revolvers is they're saying that, oh, if you had a revolver and stuff, yeah, it's not good for a defense situation. Well, there's a lot of times in a defense situation where a semi-auto isn't any good either. Because if you have 17 rounds, you would not survive any more than you would having a 5-shot revolver. Because these two guys right here, if it only takes them a half a second to shoot at you, you know, you would have to pray that these guys would miss and keep missing, and that this guy would go down and stay put rather than keep fighting back, because there is no guarantee that once you hit him that he's just going to fall straight to the ground and drop the gun, okay? Even if he does drop the gun, he could probably still get the gun out and shoot or whatever. And this is what I tell people all the time. It's not necessarily the capacity, it's how you use the capacity, okay? How you use them shots, and you have to use them wisely. Now, there's some drills that people do that I don't agree with, and there's a lot of people that will back me up on this as far as tactics and stuff. One of the wrong drills that you can do is doing this stuff here, where you give this guy one shot, then you go over here, give that guy a shot, and then go here and give this guy a shot. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to have some kind of standard. And to me, the standard is headshots or a heart, which is 4 inches in diameter, that you should place. This is just my standard now. I'm not saying that everybody has to adopt this standard. You're going to have to place 2 shots in the heart at least, or a headshot at least, before you can engage this person here and this person here, because you have to make sure that this person is incapacitated or is stopped. Now, if we had cover here, you would do things differently, because what you would do is you would immediately get to cover with these 3 guys and their guns out. You'd immediately try to get to cover by shooting your way to cover, so that you could protect yourself and slice the pie if needed to take out all these guys. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So this is different than a police officer here. We got a private citizen, okay? We got a private citizen that's out here, and if he fires the first shot at this person right here while he's going to cover, and these two guys don't hit him, and let's say that he's incapacitated, okay, we're going to put him out of the way. All you have to deal with is staying at your cover and making sure that these two guys don't come after you. So you could peer out a little bit and see what's going on. If these guys took off on you, then the gunfight is done. You've only fired one shot out of your revolver or your semi-auto. And the whole key I'm trying to make here, and the whole point I'm trying to make, is that private citizens that are trained well with revolvers know what to do. Okay, so I fired one shot. This guy's incapacitated. He goes down. Okay, now these two right here, let's say that these two took off, but I'm looking around my cover and I'm seeing that they took off. I don't need to fire more shots. Now, if I fired more shots out of a revolver, for instance, they got one shot on this guy, so that's 1 out of 5. Let's say it's a .357 revolver. And let's say that I fired more shots, even though these guys were running from me with their backs turned. Now, what they will do is, a lot of times what they'll do in research is they'll count that as how many shots you needed to defend yourself in that situation. And that's why John Correa and all these other channels, they just don't understand the data properly. They don't know how to use data properly. All they do is they just look at what happened, but they don't analyze the situation to find out why they're putting this stuff in a database when it doesn't make sense. We don't put shots fired on somebody fleeing as counting that as how many shots we needed in a defense situation. The only shots we needed in this defense situation was just this guy right here. Because if he's incapacitated and I don't have to chase these guys, the gunfight is done. I return to my cover and I still got 4 rounds, okay? So it's different with law enforcement, okay? So now we got law enforcement. Let's change it up a bit, okay? Let's change things around. Let's say that I'm not a private citizen and I'm not a sheepdog and I'm not a law enforcement officer, so I'm not going to chase anybody. I'm not going to chase anybody, okay? Now we're going to switch to a police officer. A police officer is out in the middle here with these 3 guys. Same scenario. They all have handguns. They all can shoot back in a half a second. And he doesn't have his gun out, but he draws on this guy and hits this guy, okay? He goes down, but the police officer, while he hit this guy, he was going to cover. And let's say that this guy's incapacitated, like the other example I gave you. Now, the police officer comes around cover and he finds out that these 2 guys with guns are running, okay? Now, it's his duty to chase. It's his duty to chase, which means that if he has a revolver, now he needs more ammunition because he's got to pursue these 2 suspects. So what we'll do is we'll put these suspects here so I can show you what it looks like here. So the police officer's chasing the suspects, okay? And the suspects are hiding behind cover. And the police officer's duty is to go get these guys, okay? And he's got a revolver. Let's say that there was 1 shot for the private citizen, but now this police officer's got 4 more shots in his revolver. And we're taking this situation being that, let's say that there's no speed loaders, there's no speed strips, there's no reloading of any kind. The police officer that fired 1 shot, since he has to chase these guys now and go to their position, it's a disadvantage for him. So now he needs more ammo because now he's got to come around the corner and he's got to shoot it out with these guys, when the private citizen, all he had to do was just knock out that 1 guy because the other 2 ran. So this is part of the confusion that we get in the gun community, is people are always taking it from the perspective of law enforcement or military and stuff like that. But not just that, we need to separate people that are training with firearms from those that don't, because what we want is we want great tactics and we want people to practice those tactics, even if it means dry firing as much as you want for free all day with a real trigger like a revolver. A real trigger and everything else. The only thing that you don't have is you don't have the recoil. But everything else, you got the sight alignment, you got the trigger control, you can shoot as much as you want. You don't have to pull the slide back all the time like you would with the semi-auto, because you're just going to fire 5 shots and then you're going to reload your revolver, okay? So back to the police officer. Okay, so here he is. He's knocked out this guy, and he's chasing them because now they ran to cover. So now he's got to if this was his cover before, he's got to come back out of cover to chase these guys, is what I'm saying. So when he comes out to chase these guys, okay, let's say that he fires two shots, that guy goes down, okay. Now he just fired 3 shots. So we got 2 on this guy, 1 on that. Okay, he's got 3 shots, got 2 left. Okay, so he fires 2 shots at that guy, but they both miss. Okay, now the police officer is out of ammunition. So he has to go behind cover and reload. Now with private citizens, okay, the difference about this is usually, or it's very rare, that a person with a gun is going to come chase you behind cover. Okay, even if it is a criminal. Now this criminal, let's say that he wanted to chase the police officer behind cover. Now that police officer has to reload his revolver. Now we don't know if he's going to come to the police officer's cover or not. We don't know. But if he does, that police officer, if he's not reloaded in time or has a round in the revolver, then he can't return fire. Then he gets killed in that situation. And see, that's what's happening here is a lot of times when we're talking revolvers, what people do is they're getting this information from law enforcement, okay? They're getting this stuff from law enforcement. And I'm trying to think about a person that was online that I was thinking about, Tom Givens, yeah. Okay, and I respect Tom Givens and all that, but I don't think he's really thinking about things from the perspective of analyzing law enforcement and the private citizen. We have thousands of videos on John Korea's channel where we can analyze a person in a defense situation with a revolver, and we can find out why did they lose that defense situation. We can't just say, well, he had a revolver and that's why he lost the defense situation. No. What we have to do is we have to ask, why did he lose the defense situation? It's always the focus on the 5-shot revolver, 6-shot revolver. They're always focusing on capacity for everything. I swear, it's always capacity. But what they won't do is they won't look at the situation that went down and the tactics that person used and why he or she got killed in a gunfight. For example, I'll give you an example. A Chicago firefighter, okay? This is a vehicle. A Chicago firefighter had a 6-shot revolver and he was coming out of a business, okay? Now this is where they're going to blame the revolver, but not just that. They're going to count the shots that the fireman shot as how many shots you need in a gunfight. No, you can't do that unless the shots were needed. It's not the ones that you wanted to shoot. It's the ones that you need to shoot. There's a difference between good shooting and praying and spraying. We don't want pray and spray. We don't want that because if you're praying and spraying, your tactics are very poor. What you're doing is you're running the gun out when you don't need to run it out. And that's exactly what happened almost in this situation here. So you have a firefighter that's coming out and in his left hand, he's got a bag. And he finds out that these 3 guys are on this side of his vehicle, okay? And these 3 guys all have guns and they're coming after him. And just as he's coming out of the store. So immediately he takes cover, which was a good thing, okay? But then what he does is in his left hand, he doesn't drop the item. So now he's just got one hand with no support. He failed to drop the item that was in his hand, some kind of bag or something. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, when the firefighter was in front of his vehicle, he failed to just hold his cover and just peer out a little bit just to see what was going on. He failed to do that because when he found out that this guy was running, he decided that he wanted to chase him. So he started firing a lot of rounds at this guy here, and this guy got away. Okay, and he's running. But then this guy aims his gun, and it's either this guy or this guy aimed his gun in a goofy manner, like sideways or something like that, wasn't even aiming, and hit the fireman. Why? Because the fireman was out in the open, okay, and he hit him. This guy here had plans of going around the vehicle, okay. He first had plans of going around the vehicle, but once again, if the firefighter was here, let's take that situation back. If the firefighter would have kept his cover right here, okay, and he noticed that this guy was running and he just ignored it, but just held his cover, this guy would have ran. This guy would have ran and not shot him. He was the guy that shot him probably. And then this guy here, when he came around the corner, the firefighter would have noticed him and could get some shots on him. And then he could have won that gunfight with the revolver. So I hope you guys can understand. It's no disrespect for Masad Ayub, for Tom Givens, for all them guys, Greg Ellifritz and Claude Werner and all that. But I feel that people just aren't analyzing things properly. So now that firefighter going through his 5 rounds, I think he fired or something like that. So now what they'll do is they'll take that 5 rounds that he fired and put it in a database saying, these are the amounts of shots that were fired. And then a researcher will come along and he'll take them 4 or 5 shots and he'll write it down and say, oh, okay, so it takes 5 shots for the average citizen to win a gunfight with a revolver. Okay, not true, because they're not looking at the details of each incident. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of these people, they have no evidence at all. What they're doing is you're just saying, well, a 22 isn't going to work in a gunfight, or a revolver that's only got 5 shots isn't going to work in a gunfight. Okay. And they have no evidence to back it, where they can show you and me as a citizen, where we can go into a database in a computer, for instance, or on a website and look at each incident individually, how it played out. And video is one of them things that helps us find out how things get played out in a gunfight, so that we can analyze that and find out how many rounds does it take. Well, the answer to how many rounds does it take in a gunfight for a private citizen, less than a law enforcement officer. As a matter of fact, it takes much, much less rounds for a private citizen, because a private citizen's goal is to make a break in contact. Now, there might be a very rare black swan event where you're a sheepdog or a police officer for the day, but you don't have to do that. All you have to do is defend your loved ones, your family, and get the hell out of there, okay? You don't have to stay and fight. So let's put a situation here with the guy with a 5-shot revolver, okay? And you got 3 guys, okay? You got 3 guys, and they all have guns, and they want to shoot you. You fire 1 shot, okay? You go to cover immediately while you fired that shot. You're heading to cover so that this guy can't shoot you and this guy can't shoot you. This guy goes down, okay? Now, if you're at your cover and you notice that this guy's running away and this guy's running away, then that's a success, because law enforcement is going to chase these guys, not you. That's not your job, okay? Now, this requires more ammunition. So I understand what law enforcement's talking about when they talk about more ammo, because you're forcing yourself in another gunfight that you don't need to be in. The only reason why you need to be in that gunfight is because you have to put the handcuffs off. You have to play these games, hide and go seek games with these criminals, and you got to try and find them, and you get ambushed and shot in the dark. You can't shoot in the dark as well. You can't see. So this is why you do need more ammunition, okay? But getting back to the private citizen, once again, let me do it over again to refresh your mind. Once again, as you're out in the open, you fire 1 shot. All 3 of these guys have guns. You fire 1 shot. This guy gets incapacitated. He's not going to fight, okay? These 2 guys run off. But you haven't peered around the corner to see these guys. You're still holding your cover, but you notice a couple guys are running, okay? Once you peer around your cover. Now, you still have 4 shots and a 5-shot revolver, so you're fine. Now, these 2 guys run. If you would fire them shots, the rest of them, okay, that would mean that you're praying and spraying and you're not shooting an enemy that needs to be shot, okay? So that would go on the database as that's how many shots we need for a revolver in a gunfight. See? No, nonsense, okay? Let's set up another scenario, okay? Now, there's this thing that people talk about online about incapacitation. You got to stop the threat. You got to stop the threat. Incapacitation, kill, 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 kill. Most gunfights, even with 3 guys that are armed, you know how they usually end up? This brave private citizen with a handgun, I don't care what kind of handgun it is, if it's a 22 or a revolver, even if the gun jams, you know what happens in most defense situations? This brave citizen fires a shot at these guys, and these guys all take off. Okay, so that's a success. So a lot of times, most of the time, there is no need to incapacitate. There is no need to kill somebody, because stopping power isn't about necessarily killing somebody or even hitting somebody. It's stopping. Stopping power means they stop their decision to attack you. Stopping power is three guys saying, I don't want any part of this, so they were stopped by you simply because you had a gun or you fired one shot. So somebody will say, well, what happens if you shoot him and he doesn't go down? Okay, so you got three guys. Let's say you shoot this guy, he doesn't go down, and these two guys run away. Okay, these two guys run away, but this guy doesn't go down, and now he continues to shoot at you. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to come out of your cover for him. You can stay with your cover and have him come to you. Why should you go pursue him and shoot at him even though he's not incapacitated? Okay, so let's say you shoot him once, he doesn't go down. You shoot him twice, and then he decides that he's had enough, so he's going, but he's still not incapacitated. Okay, he might even have a non-lethal wound, but he decided he's had enough, so he's out of there. Okay, so this is how these events usually happen. And the other thing I didn't mention too is that just because you have three attackers with a handgun, it doesn't necessarily mean that if, say, you should need a reload, if you don't manage your ammo properly, if you should need a reload, that you wouldn't get one. And the thing is that once again, if you're behind cover, chances are that even three attackers statistically with guns are not going to come chase you around your cover. It just doesn't happen that often. It's very rare. So that gives you a chance to slip in, a speed loader, speed strip, or even single cartridges, like I show you on my channel here, about how you can load a quick one cartridge or two really quick just to get the gun back in action. And I know it's not 5 shots, but if you put one in real quick, chances are if he comes around the corner and he wants more, you can take him out with that one shot, and you might have one shot left. Now, this is an extremely rare scenario here, and it bothers me so much that these experts don't know what they're talking about. And these are guys that have been in the training industry for, some of these guys have been in the training industry for like 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and they take somebody like me that was in the Army that studied strategy and combat engineering, stuff like that, things that I was very interested in as strategy, kind of like what chess players do and stuff. You're doing a lot of thinking, and what you're doing is you're creating scenarios. That's why I have these Army men, because I create scenarios, thousands of these scenarios all the time, and ask myself a question. Can I go online and look at videos to back up my claims? Yes, there's a lot of videos that I watch, and if I take thousands and thousands of videos, what I have discovered is this, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you have a 5-shot revolver, okay? Now, I'm not talking just a 5-shot revolver. Let's say you got a speed strip with you or speed loader or whatever. So 5-shot revolvers aren't necessarily just 5-shot revolvers. You're always going to have a little bit of ammo on you that you carry, okay? I understand that. But what I've found is that for every failure, as far as a private citizen, to defend themselves with a 5-shot revolver, or even a 22, for every failure or loss of life where they defend with a revolver or a 22, you can find just as many that lost their lives to 44, 357 Magnum, 9mm, 380, you name it. You can find it. But why is it like that? Why is it that people aren't dropping dead protecting themselves with revolvers? Why isn't it that people aren't dropping dead protecting themselves with the 22? Well, the reason why is because it's so much more than capacity. It's so much more than caliber. This is tactics. This is how you use the ammunition. It's how you think. It's your strategy. This is your chessboard of life right here. is defense scenarios that you create, and then you think, what would I do in this situation? It's called a what if. This was used by Jeff Cooper many years ago in the 70s. He would say something, what if, that you can think about during the day. What if this happened? How would I respond? That kind of thing. What if this happened? How would I respond? So most of your training, believe it or not, isn't necessarily behind the gun shooting, although you should do that. Practice your speed and your accuracy. Most of your training is thinking in your head when you're a strategist, like Rommel from the German army and stuff like that. He was one of my favorites. Not necessarily, I don't take a political position or any other type of position as far as what's a better country or whatever, but I love Rommel because of his sneakiness and his strategy. They call him the Desert Fox. And I learned a lot of these strategies when I was in the Army because that's what I was interested in. I was interested in strategical things that have to do with the military. And since I was in the Army and stuff like that, I was really interested in that. And I really got carried away with it. And it's good I did, because I was the kind of person that would ask, what if this happened? What would we do in that situation? Now, another person that comes to mind that I really like out of all the researchers, out of all the trainers on the whole entire YouTube system, that I've looked at thousands of instructors and thousands of videos, the one person that I could say that really knows what he's talking about as far as strategy and really thinking and really putting in the hours and hours and hours of time looking at stuff is probably John Correa and also Claude Warner. Now, I like John Correa, but the problem with John Correa is, although he's got a lot of good points, there is some things that are lacking, and I'm sure that that's because he might not have the time to filter the data even more or to get subjects that we want. Like somebody like me, I want a certain subject studied, and I have no database. I do have my own private database, but he's got a big database himself. But if I can't see that database, then I can't see what's happening. I don't always believe what he's talking about because when we talk about shots fired or how many round, how much ammo should you have, or, should you just have one magazine or two or whatever, I need to see individual reports and individual incidences that talk about private citizens and what they did in that defense situation. And his videos help because I can watch his videos and all the other videos that I'm subscribed to and stuff like that. So John Correa is an asset. It's not that I agree with him on everything, and I'm sure he doesn't agree with me on everything. But the thing is that I'm showing you right here some of the mistakes that researchers make. And some of these researchers are decent guys, but they just don't do the research properly. So I'm not saying that Massad Ayoob and Tom Gibbons and all them other people are bad researchers. I'm just saying that they're not putting in the time and the effort, and they're not looking at it from other people's perspectives, because when you try to give them your perspective, they feel that you're not a professional, that you haven't been in the firearm industry long enough, or you haven't served as a police officer long enough and stuff like that. But the thing is, people, is that you don't need to be a scientist or an astrophysicist to know that the sun comes up every morning, okay? Because it's obvious. Okay, same thing here. Some things are just plain obvious that you can have logic and reason and understand. So the reason why Claude Warner, I think, is the best of all is because he uses his logic with no bias. He doesn't cherry pick. Okay, cherry pick is where you select things that support your bias. And obviously bias is a thing where you have personal beliefs about something and you want to guard them personal beliefs. So what you'll do is you'll do like what they call a straw dummy argument. Like, I'll give you an example, a straw dummy argument. A person says they'll pick out like a situation where a guy's in a defense situation with a revolver, and they'll show him out in the middle of the street firing all 5 shots right away, okay? And they'll say, see, that's why you shouldn't have a revolver in a defense situation, because look what happened to him. Okay, that's creating a straw dummy argument. That's where one side of the issue, like if we compare semi-autos to revolvers, a semi-auto guy will say, see, that's why you don't need a revolver, is because because that guy fired 5 shots and you need more than 5 shots at a gunfight. Well, that revolver guy is a bad example. So a straw dummy argument, what they'll do is they'll take the other person's position, find the worst case scenario in that position, and then hold to that to portray everybody else as the same thing. Same thing with concealed carry. Was some guys on YouTube that are famous, and they talked about concealed carry. And what did they do? They started right away, straw dummy argument. They picked a guy with a pair of flimsy sweatpants, and his gun was hanging out the back of his pocket where anybody could have just grabbed it, right? And he was in the hood. Well, obviously, he's a stupid idiot that is an open carrier, but that does not represent me. I am a skilled open carrier. I know my risk. I know my tactics, and I know how to have situational awareness. I know the risk. I know where I shouldn't go. Like, I know that I don't go in the hood even if I conceal carry. I'm not going to the hood for anything. So just because I say I would open carry in the hood, it doesn't mean that I would concealed carry in the hood either. I wouldn't even go there even if I had a machine gun. It's not a place I want to be, because I don't want to go to trouble. I want to get away from trouble. Okay. So all these straw dummy arguments are type of things that even Tom Givens had a straw dummy argument saying that revolvers were less reliable than semi-automatics. Okay. And what he used the squib load thing. And that's where you fire your revolver, you got a squib load. Okay, how often does that happen in a gunfight? Okay, so, and he was saying a lot of things on the podcast. Now, I will agree with Tom Givens that if you take a revolver and you put it through a course that takes thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds to train somebody, yeah, something could go wrong with the revolver. Obviously, revolvers are not perfect. But if you buy a revolver out of the box and you're walking down the street and you just have a little bit of time behind the gun as far as training, not thousands and thousands of rounds, but maybe a couple hundred rounds of training, that when you get in a gunfight with that revolver, it's not going to break down on you, okay? Whereas the range, if you beat the hell out of it, it's going to break down. That's why I don't believe in torture testing, is because if you guys believe in torture testing, let me ask you a question. Your truck out in the driveway, if I take the plug out of your oil pan, okay, and I tell you I want you to drive 50 miles and I want you to go 100 miles an hour, and then come back to me and we'll see if the truck still runs or how reliable it is. Isn't that stupid? Well, it's stupid because of the fact that when you're a private citizen in a defense situation, you're only going to fire a couple rounds. You're not going to get the barrel hot, okay? Now, that would apply probably in combat and other things like that, but that does not apply to a private citizen, because what a private citizen's going to do is they're going to fire a few shots in a defense situation, bring the gun home, clean it, oil it, and it's still going to be reliable, even if it is a semi-auto. You know, so when you do a torture test, you have to do it in the same manner as if